Welcome back to Bleav in Softball. I'm your host, Jenna, and it's another week in Women's History Month, another Bleav in Softball episode. We'll continue to do our thing in the other months too, like you already know, like we've always done, so don't you worry. But I have to say thank you for listening and for watching, not just supporting me, of course, but also supporting the game and the amazing women and men who are a part of it. So thank you. Reminders for more ways you can support. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bleav in Softball. That's BLEAV. Subscribe to Bleav in Softball on YouTube as well and actually watch the episodes. So much fun. All right, so let's go through today's order. First, we'll cover our bases, give you some news and updates, the usual. Then we'll head into today's interview with Marissa Young. She's basically the founder and fearless leader of the new program at Duke over the last few years, and just a lot of history making. No big deal. Then we'll end things with the Foul Tip of the Week, our new segment this season where we share tips to help us get better. So let's get rolling. Covering our bases. So March is that crazy time of year where winter and spring sports overlap. You got postseason basketball, you got conference play for softball and baseball. Plus this year there's volleyball and soccer all happening at the same time because of the COVID-19 delays. So it feels like the madness is next level this year. And with March Madness, we have to talk about the comparisons of the NCAA setup for the men versus the women. So if you haven't seen it yet, if you're living under a rock, there were side-by-side pictures that went viral on the internet. And the main one, there were a few, but the main one was the weight room difference. So just this huge space with a ton of racks, multiple setups for the men, and literally one rack of dumbbells only going up to 30 pounds and some yoga mats for the women. So everybody went nuts. The NCAA statement in response to it was that, oh, it's actually a space issue. But then we saw a video that was showing open space available near the practice court. They also said they were planning to expand the equipment later in the tournament when apparently there would be less teams. So it was all interesting, but people were just not having it, including male athletes like Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving. They both tweeted about it. It was crazy. But it wasn't just the weight room. Like I said, there were a few things that kind of went viral. It was also the food spread, way more options for the men, and the swag bags, just a ton more stuff that the men got as well. So I think it was one of those things where it's like, okay, it wasn't just a one-off. The difference in the investment here was apparent just kind of left and right. So I think it's a reminder of how much more work we have to do. And it's such a balance, isn't it? Like appreciating how far we've come, but also keeping up the fight for more. You know, we can't let our foot off the gas at this point. But I do think that there were some positives that came out of it. Some corporate support. You know, Orange Theory offered the use of their facilities to any of the women's teams who wanted to come by and get a workout in. You know, Dick's Sporting Goods offered to send fitness equipment to the women so that they can get the work in. And the male athletes I mentioned that started to step up and use their voice to support women, like these are all good things. Like getting that support on more of a mainstream level is important. And then actually now their weight room setup is leaps and bounds better than it was. They have racks, they got bands, they got machines, they got so much more. And that's really the power of coming together and the power of not allowing it, right? Like ask for what you want, demand it. And I think we saw that happen, which is cool. So not all bad, started off bad, but some good things came out of it. And when it comes to softball March Madness, conference play is here. I mean, we are in it now. And I always think of the season itself as really 3 seasons within a season. You have preseason, you have conference, you have postseason. And conference is where things really intensify. The competition level evens out a bit versus preseason when it's just a little more varied. You know, you're playing people from all over. Rivalries come into play. Teams are so familiar with each other, playing each other multiple times a year, every year. And internally, even within a team, the battle for spots in the preseason kind of starts to solidify. So this is where it starts to get real. And a few things from the start of conference play where we're seeing this in action are what I'm going to share. So if you look at like the SEC, for example, Alabama did take the series against Tennessee, but they dropped that first game despite being ranked significantly higher. And that third game in that series, it matters. You know, if you can steal one from a team like Alabama, that could matter at the end of it with the SEC standings. Then you look at the Pac-12. conference play, honestly, coming in hot, had two top 10 teams, Washington and Arizona, going head to head right away in weekend one. And it was one of those situations where it's anybody's guess who's going to win. But Washington took two, and they didn't even finish the rest of their games, though, because of weather. So you also have those elements, too. It's like whatever's in front of you, you have to take advantage of that situation because you don't know. Pac-12 is supposed to have 4 games this year, 3 of which count towards conference, 1 extra game to play. You only get half of those. Things happen. Quick shout out also to the Big 12, specifically to Oklahoma. This isn't about conference play, actually, but they swept Team Mexico on their tour and outscored them 25-4. It's just impressive. Like, they could go to the Olympics, I guess. Great. Casual. And now, what's the rest of the Big 12 supposed to do with that? Awesome. Then there's the ACC. Clemson is on a 17-game win streak heading into the series against Duke this weekend, who has an 18-game win streak and is ranked number 12 in the coaches poll this week. They just keep climbing. It's crazy. So I'm excited for it. I'm thrilled. My former coach at Stanford, John Rittman, is going to be coaching Clemson, obviously. And then there's today's guest, who will be on the other side of things. So it's awesome. And both programs are new and just within the first 4 years of their existence. How cool is that, the success that they're seeing this early? But let me give you some more, actually, on today's guest. Coach Young and the Blue Devils earned their 100th win in Duke's program history this past weekend. And I actually talked to her. We recorded our interview right before their games that weekend. So maybe it was good luck. Just saying, right? But there was an epic Gatorade bath. I love that personally. I love to see that energy. It's awesome. And her statement that she put out, through Duke softball was just all about the team and giving them credit. It was all about the program's accomplishments. She was like, I love my players, staff, and what we've all built together at Duke. And we talk about this mindset in today's interview. And we also talk about the growth of the ACC and just a ton of great stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and head into the actual interview. She is currently the head coach of Duke softball, but was also an All-American player at Michigan and one of the best pitchers in Big Ten history, Marissa Young. Thank you for joining. I'm thrilled about this.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk about Duke and our program.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do have to mention before we get into that I did actually just have Samantha Finley on the podcast recently. So clearly, we're giving Michigan some love right now.
Yes, keep the blue, amazing blue going.
I was going to say, too, you clearly love blue, having played at Michigan before Duke, you were at UNC, now you're at Duke. You just changed shades of blue. Is that sort of the deal?
So far, it's been good for me.
It works if it's not broken,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. But I do, with Duke specifically, I see your tweets just absolutely hyping the team up and hyping your players up. Is that kind of your coaching style on the field too?
It is. I think, our kids, I want them to know that I'm their biggest fan and their toughest critic. And so really proud of all of their accomplishments. I'm so thankful that all of them chose to come to Duke and start the program with me, and to see what we've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. I feel like a cheerleader in the dugout most of the time because I'm just so excited for them and all the hard work they've put into it, and seeing the success they're having is just really exciting for me as a coach.
It is crazy how young the Duke program is, that you've been able to start, like you said, with these players. It feels like Duke softball's been around longer than that, in a good way. You guys are so fun to follow. But when you did kind of get started, how do you build a program from scratch? What are those kind of foundational pieces that you have to get in place?
Our culture was first and foremost for me. I wanted everybody a part of our program, from coaching staff to our support staff and our student athletes and their families, to know that we were going to demand living a life of excellence on and off the field. And early on, that was tough. It was I felt more like the police or the principal, and trying to lay down the rules and sort of set the standards and expectations. And now that we have girls that have been in the program for a few years and are starting to grow up and mature and understand, why coach wanted things done a certain way, I've been able to sort of breathe and take a breath and have a lot more fun with them. But really that's been at the core is building a good culture. Our kids work hard, they embrace the little things and love playing for each other. And it's really special to be able to coach at a place like Duke where I have some brilliant, incredible young women that are so smart and so bright, and they're doing so many great things off the field, in the classroom, in their community, and then on top of it to be able to be a top 25 team. I think it's something not many believed we could do, and so it's like us against the world.
That's kind of the best place to be, though, is like to have a healthy chip on your shoulder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember reading when you first got hired, like when it was first announced, that you kind of said, I know everybody else from the outside is saying that it's going to take time to build and to be patient. But you right away, like you said it from the beginning, like I'm coming in guns blazing, and I want to have high expectations right away. And then look at you now. Like I feel like every week you guys are just climbing the rankings.
Yeah, and it's just a byproduct of, like I said, the commitment to the process and building the right foundation that we're starting to see the fruits of our labor. And now it's about keeping the kids focused on the process and not so much on the rankings or, what the outside world is seeing or thinking about them. We've got to approach every day and every game like we have in the past. And it's just so thankful to be playing again after what we've faced last year with the pandemic, and just continuing to grow as a group.
That's the truth. I mean, gratitude is definitely like the theme. I feel like just to have softball back has been indescribable for me, let alone for people like you who are actually like on the field doing this again. It must be such a good feeling.
Yeah. Makes us all very appreciative of little things.
Oh yeah, that's definitely been the big learning, I'd say, one of many in this last year. But I did want to ask you, so you just mentioned that you're not really thinking about the rankings. And I think that's so important because people get so caught up in it, especially the media and like fans and things like that. It's definitely, like you said, you use the word byproduct. That's really what it is. When you actually look at the goals that you're really setting out for your team, like I'm sure every week you're not like, well, you know what, guys, we really got to climb up in the rankings today or this week, right? So like, what are those actual goals that you're trying to accomplish as a group?
Yeah, I think the goals are for us to keep getting better as a team. And we know, it's great to crack the top 25 early on and be in the rankings, but it's really about where we finish. And we want to be a team that gets beyond the ACC tournament this year, and just continuing to figure out what we need to do as a program to sustain success is really the key. And I think we're in a good place and have that road ahead of us. It's just a matter of staying the course. But, you look at this past weekend, we won all of our games and still dropped in the rankings. And, it is what it is. So we can't get caught up in those things. It's really about approaching each game and figuring out how we can be better on the road to Oklahoma City.
That's right. And I know that you've also said before that you're very hands-on in every part of the game with softball. Like, pitching is obviously a really easy place for you to dive in head first, but as a head coach, kind of having your hand in every part seems to also be what helps the program thrive. Like, how would you say you work with sort of your staff to support the players?
Yeah, I think just my background and how I was raised, very blue collar. My parents worked 2 jobs all our lives, and they had a janitorial job. So from the age of 10, I was helping them clean buildings, and, coaching D2, you had to drag the field before practice and carry the equipment in your car, and sort of working up the ranks that way made me very appreciative of the little things, and understand that every piece of your program is super important. And it's hard work. It looks different, but it's all essential. It's all hard work. And so I really do value the contributions and the work of everybody in our program, whether it be our nutritionist, our field crew, and our coaching staff. And I try to give everybody a voice and a lot of open door communication. We have, weekly meetings with our support staff, and always inviting people to contribute to their thoughts and ideas to the program, because it's collective. It's our program, not mine. And so, being hands-on, whether it's standing out in the outfield one day with outfielders are taking fly balls. I love throwing BP every day to the team, which I still do. And, just making your rounds to know that I'm invested in every part of the program, and being the last one to stay behind and clean up equipment and all of those things. We talk about how to lead as a servant leader. That's all a big part of me, and sort of how we've built the program of being a blue collar, work hard and take care of things.
Servant leader is such a great way to put that. I really like that a lot. But getting to hit BP off you must be such a treat. And also, like, it must help them get better. Like, that must be so fun. Do you feel like you still have it? Like, you still got it?
No, I have it from 35 feet, but I love, honestly, looking at the pitchers that we're going to face for the upcoming weekend, and like changing my motion to mimic what they're going to see and trying to get in the moment. And I'm sure the kids are like rolling their eyes as they step in the batter's box, like, okay, coach, here you go, trying to be so-and-so this weekend. But I think it's just, a little way to show I'm invested in helping them, prepare for the upcoming weekend. And there's some days where I'll challenge them and say, I'm going to strike you out, and other days where it's feel good and see how many you can hit over the fence. So you have fun with it.
I bet they love it. And even if now they're rolling their eyes, they'll look back and be like, our coach was freaking awesome. Like, that's how I would feel. Like, that's amazing.
I hope so. I hope that's what they think.
I'm sure they do. But with that being said, I'm sure that you also have a unique bond with the pitchers on your staff for that reason too. Just all of your experience, I'm sure they're just like soaking it up, as much as possible. But when I said that I see you hype up your players, I see you hyping up the pitchers and the whole staff a lot too. That's really cool. How is your relationship with the bullpen?
Well, everybody in the program, I feel like they're my daughter, my baby. I brought them here, and I want to see them successful. I knew in starting the program, it would be really difficult for a freshman to carry us. And so we went into it with a staff, and they have really embraced supporting one another and having healthy competition, embracing their differences of what their strengths are, so that when they come in, this is what they're going to do well when they're given their opportunity. And, I love seeing them embrace the process. We're really big on sort of a holistic approach to developing pitchers. And again, I think early on, it was like, oh my gosh, coach wants us to do so much stuff. And now, they're doing it on their own and really figuring out what works for them. And I'm just happy to see them all having success. And, for us to have 3-4 pitchers we can count on weekend in and weekend out, that's a rarity, and it's going to take us a long way.
Absolutely. I feel like that is more and more becoming the key in college softball, because hitting is just unreal these days. Like, how hitting has developed, like not just the long ball, but in general, even batting averages just across the board feel like they're higher than they used to be. So having a staff that you can rely on is just more important than ever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you were pitching, what were the things that you really leaned on? Like, whether it be your mental approach or just things you would tell yourself, because we obviously all talk to ourselves, whether we know it or not. What were the things that you'd relied on?
I'm a big self-talk person. I'm still working on that with our pitchers, of figuring out, how to approach that differently for each and every one of them. Some of them just, have that mindset. I just want to go out and throw. I don't want to think about anything. But I definitely think with my size and, limitation of velocity, I had to be really crafty as a pitcher. And I think my mindset of being super competitive and, the mindset of I'm going to find a way to get hitters out was my strength. And so that's something, and I try to just hone in on for each of them to figure out how they can channel that same self-talk.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, I've always been a believer that to take on a role like pitching, where you're really the center of what's going on, you and the catcher are the only ones that touch the ball every single pitch, right? You have to be a little bit, I don't know what the exact word is, I'm still trying to figure this out, but there's crazy. Like a little craziness. Yeah, to be honest, like little quirkiness, you know what I mean? Like to be, to really want to be in that position, and catchers too, but in a little bit different way. So, okay, I'm glad that I'm getting the sense that you agree and that I agree. Okay. Good. What was your type of crazy then when you were pitching?
We talk a lot about our hype level, and It was hard for me at first. Our pitchers are very low key and mellow. And so to perform well, they like to be at like out of the scale of 0 to 10, they like to be at a height number of 4 to 6. And I'm like, if I wasn't at an 8 or a 9, something was wrong. But yeah, I was just, really uber competitive and high energy. And our pitchers are very different. So I've had to really let them be themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is that pitchers, they're all different kinds of crazy. Like there's a spectrum, I feel like. That's why I had to ask you, because everyone has a different personality. And I think catchers tend to be able to manage personalities well, right? Because they work with multiple pitchers and things like that. And so you see a lot of catchers become head coaches. But you being a pitcher that's become a head coach, obviously you're a pitching coach before this, is interesting to me. Like, how do you think that helps or makes a difference, I guess, in your coaching approach?
I think the thing that I was a hitting pitcher is really what helped me, because I was on both sides of the ball. I think it would have been a lot more difficult had I, been a pitcher only. But again, I think just my background is what's helped me sort of on my way to getting where I am. I've, really been in tune with everything going on around me. And even as a player, had to work harder than everybody else because of my size and limited athleticism. So, if you put your mind to it and work hard, you can accomplish what you want. And that's sort of the approach I've taken from a coaching standpoint as well.
I know you've mentioned your size a couple times. I think I saw that. Are you 5'6"? Did I make that up?
It's probably a stretch. 5'5".
Okay. I was trying to, give you a little.
Yeah.
Well, so
I now have a daughter that's taller than me, and she reminds me every day that I'm only 5'5".
I remember the day that I was taller than my mom, and I definitely told her every day too. So I'm with her on that. But I think that's interesting too, because a lot of people think that pitchers, especially, I mean, not just pitchers, other positions too, but when you look at pitching, like, oh, you have to be really tall, or there are certain like aspects of you physically that you need or that are required. And I really don't think that's the case. I think it's just a matter of playing to your strengths, and maybe, to your point, like working hard on how to figure out how to make other things that you can improve on better. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I do. I mean, I think as a coach, you want to recruit the safe bet, and it is tough. There aren't too many great small pitchers out there that dominate, and I get it from that standpoint. But I think that the small ones, we have a lot of heart and a lot of grit to figure out how to play just as big as the 6-foot pitchers.
For sure. And I feel like not only was the fact that Duke was announced as sort of this brand new program and the ACC, like, so exciting, but also I think the fact that you were named as the coach is what drew so much attention to it. I remember seeing you say that you had like 400 emails from kids who were interested in the program within a couple days of the announcement. That kind of, I don't know, like investment, like obviously there's a financial investment from Duke itself, the athletic department, but just seeing that, how did that sort of set the tone for you as you were going to build this program?
I mean, the name recognition that the Duke brand has in itself is what attracted me to the job. And I knew that there were going to be kids instantly all over the country that wanted to come here and play. And so for me, it was most about, what do I want our program to look and feel like 5 years down the road? And then we've got to bring those type of kids into the program, because it's not a matter of who wants to come. It's who are we going to narrow the choice down to be the right fit for us down the road. And our kids are a huge part of building the culture that you lead, but you got to have people following. And they've been a huge part of instilling that culture in our freshmen and making it what it is today. It's almost to the point as coaches where, it's sort of player led, which is phenomenal again in just 4 years. But yeah, for me, that's what it was about, was just, what do we want this to look like in the future, and build from there.
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned the ability to follow as well, because theoretically it's like if every single person leads, then you're all going in different directions, right? Like you still have to have a cohesive unit and a shared goal. So two-part question then. It's like, what do you think are the key aspects to the leadership that you've seen with your team and maybe even just in general? But then also, like, what does it take to be a good follower as you're kind of learning and trying to improve?
I mean, for me as a head coach, like I said, giving everyone around me, everybody a part of this program, a voice. And there are moments where you take their opinion and their insight and say, thank you, but no, thank you. But it's really important that you make them feel like, I heard that and I appreciate that, but here's the reasons I'm deciding differently. And then I think it's important to give credit where credit's due. I think so much of what we're doing in our program right now weren't my own ideas. They've come from assistant coaches, they've come from players. And, for me, that's the part of like knowing when to lead and knowing when to be led. And I want everybody to feel that they have a reason to be invested in this program because they're a part of the decision making and, how things are coming together, that they're not just here following orders. And I think that has really been a huge part of the glue of bringing us together, is because people really do have a voice in what happens in our program.
It's really important. It's like to listen and to be heard, right? We all want to be heard. We all want to feel like people are listening to us. So doing both is important. That makes a lot of sense. What else do you feel like has in these early years really pushed you guys to the success that you're seeing now? You've obviously talked about culture a lot, but are there any other sort of even just intangibles that you feel like have really driven this team?
I mean, I think kids that come to Duke and can handle the academic rigor want to be great. They could have taken the easy road anywhere else. And so for them, they're here. They're in a great conference. They were really determined to make the program great. So again, back to our players, they deserve the credit. And, our assistant coaches that we've had along the way have all left, have improved the program as they've been here. And couldn't say enough about our assistants that we have right now. Josh Bloomer has done an amazing job with our offense, and overall, like he's the competitive spirit that I am on the inside, but I keep it sort of bottled in. The kids say I'm like composed, but I'm crazy on the inside. I just don't let crazy out. He's crazy on the outside. But the good thing is that has sort of like lit the fire in our players to like bring that out more, like play with more swag, talk more trash, have more of that in you. And then we have Coach Bracamonte, who is like one of the best mental coaches, coaching the mental game. And I think our dynamic has just been so incredible of how we work together and find ways to bring out different things in our players. And we're all really committed to just, developing them as people off the field, which it goes back to our strong culture. But I think those are the intangibles that we have going for us.
It's funny how everything becomes a team. Like you have the players who's a team, but then your staff is like a team within the team, right? Like, and even like the bullpen's sort of a team within a team. Like everything kind of works out that way. And I think that's the case in life, which is why softball is just unbelievable for preparing you for anything you want to do in life, in my opinion, which is like a whole other topic that we could go on for hours about. But
yeah. And I think people find like they become their best selves when they're a part of the right team. And I feel like we have the right captains doing the right things for the players. We have the right coaching staff right now. And right now we're all the best version of ourselves because we're surrounded by the right people.
Right. That's the thing. It's the right group of people at the right time. Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like even hitting, right? Like it's like to have timely hitting, it has to be all strung together at the right time, at the right moment. It's like that's the case when you're trying to build the culture and team beyond just, practice and the games too.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I think it's been awesome to see you guys really make history. I mean, so early on. It's again, you guys are really fun to watch. And I remember last year before the shortened season, like being like, wow, I have to keep my eye on Duke, like there's good stuff happening over there. And then of course the season was cut short. how do you kind of, as a program, I mean, so many challenges, obviously, over this last year. How are you able to really take that momentum from last year and start strong this year?
Yeah, I think every program, everyone in the country, whether you play a sport or not, has really had some life adjustments to make with everything that COVID's brought. And I'm so proud of how our kids were so determined to come back. And, you think about all the time we had off, and people continue to say, like, we picked up right where we left off. It's pretty remarkable. And, it's remarkable that they went home and were on their own for that long. And some people didn't have access to gyms or fields. And, there's so many things that changed within their life. During the prime time of their life, their college years, and not being able to interact with friends and family, and so much thrown at them. And for them to come back ready and better than where we were, just speaks to their character of who they are as human beings, how well they handle adversity, and how much they love this program. They didn't want what happened last year to be seen as a fluke, or to go to waste. And they were super determined to come back and show the world that this is who we are. And it's fun.
It's a huge testament to their work ethic and their ability to do everything that they did on their own. But I think it's a huge testament to you as well for being able to inspire that in them. It's like, but that's where that foundational culture comes into play. Like, that's why, to your point, it's so important to actually have that in place first. Then you can tackle whatever it is that comes your way, even if it's something as wild as a global pandemic.
Yeah, didn't have that one in the forethought.
Really? You didn't know that was going to happen? Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. But I think with all the history making, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that you, when you were hired, were actually the first Black female head coach in Duke history, which congratulations on being the first, first of all, because the goal is not to have any more firsts, right? But we're chipping away at that, and you're helping towards that cause. But I would just ask you, what is that significance both for you, but then also for the Duke athletic community?
Yeah, I mean, as a new program, I'm thankful that Kevin White believed in me to start softball. But it is pretty incredible when you think about 26 sports that I was the first. And for me, it's about using my platform and the opportunity I've been given to provide young women of color opportunities that they may not have gotten if I wasn't in this role. And to really impact the other athletes, even the white players that are a part of our program, now have a better understanding of all that went on this summer, and have a better understanding of what life has been for so many in secret, that for so long, that they're impacted to want to make changes and make a difference in lives moving forward. And really, that's the key, is just to be that spark in people's lives that provide them hope and provide change moving forward. And I have daughters of my own, and I want to be a great role model for them, and want them to grow up believing they can do whatever they want to do, even if it hasn't been done. And I think for me, being successful given this opportunity is really important, because my success hopefully will lead to more doors being open for others.
Does that feel like additional pressure, or does it feel like additional motivation?
It's the kind of motivation of, like, I want to get back to the World Series type of pressure. Like, you want it.
Yeah. Because there is a difference between like stress, right? And it's like, no, this is pressure. Like, this is good, healthy.
Makes you get up every day. You're tired, and you're tired, and could come up with a million excuses, and you're like, no, I owe it to myself, I owe it to my family, and there's so many others out there that I owe it to go get up and go get it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And I've seen you participate in some other like important conversations, even beyond, just Duke or just college softball. Like, I think you recently participated in a discussion panel with Alliance Fast Pitch, which is, for the listeners, I've talked about it on the show, but if you don't remember, It's a group of travel ball teams that have come together to create sort of their own league in some ways. But anyway, those types of opportunities, I have to say, it's just cool to see more and more people engaging in them, and you being one of them. What do you get out of those?
It's incredible to go through things like that because, along the way, you never think about you being the first or you doing things that others haven't. You're just going out, playing the game you love or working hard to achieve success, and to hear from other people that, your story inspires them or your story has given them hope. It makes the tough days worthwhile.
Yeah. Did you always know that you wanted this platform? Meaning, did you always know that you wanted to coach after playing?
No, I wanted to be a criminal attorney. And I was actually studying for the LSAT, and my former college catcher was giving lessons at an indoor facility and said, I really need somebody that can work with pitchers. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And several months later, I made the phone call home to my parents to say I was going to forego law school, which did not go over well, to coach softball. But I knew that was my passion.
Yeah, well, look at you now. Yeah, I feel like we should send like flowers to your teammate. Like, I feel like, yes, like I want to personally send her flowers at this point.
It's a good one. I should call her up and thank her for that.
I mean, and I'm sure she would agree. Like, you're the one who did it, right? But it's always like those moments like that, I feel like, that are early on, like on the path to success. Like one of those first steps is something like that. It's like somebody believing in you, somebody asking you, somebody pushing you, so even though if it seems small at the time, it's important. And I know you're doing that for players now, right? Like, so it all kind of comes back around and keeps moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think what's awesome too is, for me, having watched the growth of ACC softball overall, and obviously the growth of Duke softball bodes well for ACC softball. Seeing Florida State win the first national title a few years ago, Clemson also joining recently. I mean, when you look at the ACC softball landscape, like what comes to mind first for you?
I just think about the beginning of preseason polls. It's crazy to see how they choose those things and then how it all plays out, because the conference has gotten so competitive, and it really is, anybody's game between 4 or 5 programs. And that's what makes it extra exciting, is that, it's not predestined. Oh, we know so-and-so is going to win it. Everybody's a couple games away. And, for us, obviously, we've been chasing Florida State for several years, and to see our name at the top of the list right now, leading the ACC, it's a cool moment. But we know we've still got a long road ahead of us, and we got to keep taking it one game at a time.
And that's the balance too, isn't it? When it's like you want to soak up and celebrate little wins like that, that's definitely a positive. You want to put those in your back pocket, but you also like can't get caught up in them. But you don't want to ignore them completely either, because they do kind of help build your confidence and your camaraderie. So how do you find that balance?
To be honest, I've struggled with that a lot in the past, especially year 1 and year 2. It's like, put my head down and just go to work. And you get down the path and realize you never stop to look up, to stop and smell the roses, to enjoy, to have those cool conversations with people along the way, because you're so busy trying to get to the finish line. And so I've really been intentional about trying to slow down and even do less, so that you have more time to do more with the people that matter most around you. And yeah, I think those are cool win moments that you do, especially kids, they do need to pat themselves on the back for how far they've come, and know that, they still have more they want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you talk much with other ACC coaches? Like, is that a thing that you guys kind of have conversations about?
We've talked a lot more due to COVID than we ever had in the past. That has definitely changed our camaraderie as a group. But yeah, I have a handful of college coaches in my pocket that I communicate with and lean on for, advice and run ideas by. So appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And part of the reason I asked too is because Coach Rittman at Clemson was my coach here at Stanford. So between you and him, like with those two programs and them being brand new, well, not brand new, but in the long run, recent years, I've been just more and more just like, I need to watch the ACC, so I'm always curious just kind of what sort of support coaches get from their peers too, in those situations. Yeah. When you think about the future of ACC softball, where do you see it going from here? When you were playing, it was like so Pac-12 dominant. SEC has certainly like risen a lot in the last 10 years. Where do you think the ACC fits in?
I hope that we continue to be in that mix. You look at the top 25 rankings and every single one of the SEC programs is there. And I think that at least the top half of the ACC programs are as good, and we need to work to get there. I think the ACC network coming online and having more of our games visible is definitely going to help people see more of quality ACC games. And I mean, all the coaches in the conference have done a great job of sort of raising the bar in our conference. So, I think I'm excited that more games across the board are being visible to, especially to the young players and softball players that, you get emails all the time that kids were able to watch the game. And, as a player, we knew growing up, you didn't have that luxury. So I think that television is going to do a lot for our sport and also for our conference.
Oh, absolutely. I remember the Pac-12 network actually started the year after I graduated. And my entire, right, of course, that's how it works. My entire family was like, oh, come on. Like my grandma was like, Mija, I wish that they would have had it last year. And I was like, I know, there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. But it's so true, because I do think that that's played into some of the SEC's success as well. Like having had the ESPN deal and the SEC network and all of those things, that's what more and more players were seeing on TV. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, kind of in conjunction with Duke coming on board, Clemson coming on board, there's the ACC network launch too. Like these things, they do matter. And as a coach, like, how do you engage in that? Like, how are you in like interviews, for example? Some coaches are like, I can't wait to get this headset off. I'm like done with this conversation, and others are really engaged. Like, what's your style?
I love it. I like, again, being able to share and promote our players and what they're doing, and tell their story off the field. Really, they're incredible people doing great things. And I think, again, being role models for young players out there, we need to get those stories out so that they can be heard.
Yeah. Good. I like that. I feel like there's more and more even within the broadcast too, like in between innings, like certain things that just didn't really happen before. Like they're getting more and more creative with that, which is cool, because you get to know, I think, the coaches like you guys and even the players more as like people. Like fans actually get more insight into them as individuals versus, just their stats or just what they see on the field.
Yeah, the commentators, the last 2 years have done an incredible job of investing the time prior to the weekend of making calls and getting information and, doing their due diligence to get research prior to it. And I think that helps improve the quality of the broadcast for sure.
Yeah, and I'd imagine it makes the players feel more comfortable too. Like for me, when I'm calling Stanford games or Pac-12 games, that's my favorite part, and even like seeing like some fun facts about you guys, like not just, again, like your record and all these things, but like, what do they like to do outside of softball and things like that is really fun. Knowing people's majors, like, just again, more of like all the dimensions that make each individual unique.
Yeah.
Well, I normally wrap up with a little game that I play with everybody that comes on the show.
Uh-oh.
No, it's fine. I know some people freak out. They're like, oh gosh. And then other people are like, yeah, whatever, sure. But it's easy, super simple. It's called Safer Out. And basically I'll just bring something up, and if you like it or you agree with it, you'll call it safe. If you don't like it, you don't agree with it, you'll call it out. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay. So first one, I think I could guess your answer, but just to confirm, pitching by committee versus having one main go-to ace in the circle, safe or out?
Safe.
Yeah, had a feeling. It's been successful for you guys. So when we talked about, I think like across the board, that's just where it's going in softball now.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so that was an easy one. That was a warm up. We'll call it. So the second one is having a conference tournament the way that the ACC does versus like the Pac-12 who doesn't. Having that tournament at the end, safe or out?
Safe.
Yeah, what is so awesome about it? Because I always get that feeling, but I never experienced it in the Pac-12. So I'm curious, like what are the best parts of it?
You don't get a chance to play every team in your conference throughout the season. So, that conference tournament is just the last hurrah of getting an potential opportunity of seeing teams you haven't played. And also, teams get hot at the end of the season, which is what is going to propel them to postseason. So getting that opportunity to play there again and that team get an at-large bid, I think is really important. Gives them something to gun for.
I like that because actually there's a big part of me that kind of doesn't like that, for example, like All-Americans and things like that are named before postseason. Because to your point, like the conference tournaments postseason, like it's like, isn't that when it really, really matters, like how you are as a player, So for us to kind of make those decisions before like the biggest stage, the most important time, has always felt a little funky to me. But I think that's cool to see that kind of culminate in the conference tournaments. I'm excited to watch your guys' this year. Okay, so couple of safes. So you have a couple runners on so far. But the last one is a little bit loaded, but bat flips, safe or out?
Out.
I had a feeling. What's your thought process on it?
I think just I'm a little bit old school, to me, humble and act like you've been there before. You did your job and trot around the bases and get back in the dugout.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things too, where like you said, you do have some craziness, but you keep it in. You can kind of do like a mental bat flip, if that makes sense. I hadn't really thought of this till right now, but it's like you can have like sort of that confidence like internally without, I guess, doing it physically. I don't know if that even made sense. But
yeah, and value, how you celebrate with your team versus I think that's a lot of, making it about you at that moment.
I see what you're saying. I figured, for all of us that played like before 2015, I'd say, or something like that, I think the majority I've kind of seen that be the case.
Yeah. Then the controversy is like, I'd probably hit somebody that bat flipped on me as a pitcher. I'm just saying.
Listen, hey, I'd expect it. Like if I did it, I'd be like, yeah, I'm getting one in the ribs. Like just be ready. And actually we've had people say that, like Danielle Laurie, when she came on the show, she was like, I think she might've said that verbatim, like expect one in the ribs. If not you, your teammate, it's happening. I was like, yeah, okay, fair enough. I guess everyone can choose what they want to do in that situation. Well, anyway, on that note, thank you for joining the show. This was great. I'm again, so fun watching your program and watching you coach. And I love seeing like players who transition that kind of leadership too into a coaching role and make an impact. So it's been awesome getting to talk to you a little bit. And thank you again. I love this chat.
Hopefully we'll see you postseason.
I love talking to Coach Young. I have a lot of respect for people who create things and who truly build things. I think it's really easy to be the person in the stands or on the couch watching on TV and critiquing everything that they see. But the people that actually go out there and actually do it, that do something, to me, that deserves respect, especially when they do it as well as she does. And she's clearly building something special at Duke. So that helps. But on that note, let's transition to the foul tip of the week. This week's foul tip is about the little things because they matter. When it comes to the little things, I think of two sayings that we hear often. First one is, it's about the little things. It's all about the little things. So it's this sort of sense that the little things are really, really important, which is true, right? But then the other saying we hear is, don't sweat the small stuff. Well, that creates the sense that the little things are not the end all be all. Don't lose sight of the big picture, right? Which is also true. These two concepts really do contradict each other. And it's always kind of bothered me, right? So which is it? And full transparency, I'm still figuring out the answer to this question, or at least my answer to this question, because it may work differently for all of us. But what I've come up with so far is that the positive little things matter and the negative little things are what we should let go of. You know, when we think of the little things that matter, it's things like picking up your teammates, like putting their glove and their visor at their position on the field if they were just on offense, you know, coming off the bases that half inning before. Or cleaning up after yourself in the batting cages. Make sure you pick up all the balls, put the tees back, whatever. Just laughing with your teammates in the locker room, you know, like having those intangible moments. These things show respect, caring, gratitude, and all of that breeds more good things. But when we think of the little things that we should let go of, it's things like when you hit a ball hard right at somebody and you just feel like, oh, I just can't catch a break. Right? You don't want to dwell on the fact that you got out. Focus more on the fact that you actually hit the ball hard. It means you're on the right track. It'll come. And your identity really isn't based on your performance anyway. It's based on who you are as a person. So always remember that when you get swept up in the details. I know it definitely helped me. And like anything else in life, I think it's about balance. Whether you're holding on to the positive things to lift you up and keep you sane, or you're letting go of the negative things to get perspective and keep you sane. It matters. Whichever way you're staying sane, it matters, even if it's small. So that's it. The little things matter. That's the foul tip of the week. You've been listening to Bleav in Softball, presented by Bet Online. The show is available anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and wherever else you listen, including Bleav.com. Hit that subscribe button, rate the show, write a review, share it with your friends, watch the videos on YouTube as well. And then, of course, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bleav in Softball. Again, BLEAV. You can also always reach out to me on Twitter at Jenna Becerra01 and Instagram at Jenna Becerra2. Thanks for joining us today and catch you soon.